What's up, folks? This is the Visual Smuggler, and today we are in Adobe After Effects. I'm going to walk you through how to create something that a ton of bands, record labels, promoters all want done. A YouTube music promo. Similar to something you might see on Slam Worldwide or your favorite record label. It's a video that shows the album art along with music from the album underneath. You can also use this as just a promo or even a way to stream the entire album online. Now, of course, you could just slap a still image of album art on a 16:9 video, put a music track underneath and call it a day. But that doesn't grab people's attention. And to be honest, it's boring as hell. Here, what we're going to do is put together some simple looping animation elements that'll bring the promo to the next level. So with that, let's dive right in. I'm going to be creating this. It's for a made-up Djent band called Centennial. If you want to know how I did the album art, check out this previous video with the Photoshop tutorial here. So, to get started, what we're going to do is come up to Composition, New Composition, and we'll go over the settings here. We're going to stay at 854 by 480, that's YouTube size. We're going to keep the frame rate 30 square pixels, and the song is 6 minutes long, so I'm going to set it for 6 minutes exactly. Click OK, and that'll create our comp. You can also name the comp whatever you want. I just usually let them remain as comp 1, comp 2 through comp a million. Anyway, let's start with our background. So first thing we want to create is this cool landscape background, and you can see that there's some film stock playing, and it's kind of jumping a little bit. That's what we're going to create first. So let's go to our main comp. And there's nothing here, so we got to pull in our background. And you'll notice the background is pretty huge, so let me zoom out. I'm using the scroll wheel on my mouse to zoom in and out, just so you know. And I'm just going to change the size of this, bring it down. Normally, you could hold Shift if you want it to change universally. Here, I'm just kind of trying to make it fit. And what I want to do is make sure that it's not a precise fit. We actually want to leave some bleed room because there's going to be a little animation put into this. So I'm going to zoom back to 100%. Now what we need is that cool looking film stock that's in the background, which I do have a video of. It's this video playback MP4. I'm going to drag that in and I'm going to make sure it's above the background layer. Now at first you look at it and you're like, well, first it's too big. So let's change that. And this one's not going to have any animation, so we don't really need much bleed room. We just kind of wanted to get it to fit. It doesn't have to fit just right, just enough so we can see what's going on there. And another thing you might notice is that we can't see the background behind it. Easy. Here's how we're going to change that. We're going to use transfer modes. What are those? These things right here. See where it says normal? I'm actually going to click on that and I'm going to choose overlay. Oh, there you go. Now we can see the background and it looks pretty cool. Let's play it. Looks pretty awesome. Keeps going. And all of a sudden, where did the film stock go? Well, the film stock video is only about 4 seconds long. So what do? Do we just duplicate it a bunch of times and go all the way through 6 minutes? No. Here's a better way to do it, a little secret trick. We're going to go to video playback. That's that film stock footage. And I'm going to go to interpret footage, main. And down here where it says other options, loop. What this is going to do is loop the video as many times as we want. So I'm just going to do like 200. Click OK. Now you can see all of a sudden this shaded part showed up. That means that we can extend the video now. So if I go to the end of the video, you see the arrow change. Let's just pull it all the way to 6 minutes. Now that film stock video is just going to loop over and over and over and over. And we didn't have to create a bunch of different layers. All we had to do was interpret footage, set some loops. We're good to go. Now let's move on. So one thing I'm noticing is that it's really blown out in my background image here. If I turn off that film stock layer, we can see it's actually, you know, kind of a gingy looking place. Here it looks like a day at the beach. And we really want to change that. To do that, I'm actually going to go to my effects and presets and look up levels. I'm going to pull the levels in and I'm going to drop them right on that layer. And you can see this histogram shows up. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to take the overall brightness down. There we go. It's looking a lot better. Now I'm going to play with some of the parameters on the sides. We can maybe bring the high tones up a little bit. Maybe play with the mid-tones. Create that cool little vignette effect that's going on there. Yeah, I like that. Looks good. All right, we're going to leave that right like that. We have this cool little vignette going on. It looks pretty good. So let's watch our video so far. Well, here's the problem. It still looks like we have film stock playing over a still image. What we really want to do is maybe give some life to that image in the background so it looks like real film stock, kind of like it's jumping a bit. To do that, we're going to go over here to Effects and Presets, and we're going to look up Wigglerama. This is an awesome, awesome effect. I'm going to grab this, drag it onto my desolate background. I'm going to scroll back up here. Levels, we can just kind of collapse that. And what we really want is Wigglerama. So transform, we can collapse that. Don't touch transform. You don't need to. It's already set for you. Now, the first time you throw Wigglerama on, if you press play, it's going to look like that, which is like, what the hell? So we definitely need to set some things. So the first thing I'm going to do is the wiggle speed, I'm actually going to leave at 1. The wiggle nervousness, I'm going to turn that to 10 because that's really kind of that film stock look. It's kind of that jittery look to it. The wiggle position, I'm actually going to set that to 15. Now, the wiggle rotation, that's what causes it to rotate like that and show that background all weird. So we don't want rotation at all in this, and I'm actually going to set that to 0. And then the wiggle scale, that clearly changes the size. We don't really want the size of it changing, so I'm going to set that to 0 as well. Now, if I play, look at that. It bounces just enough, just subtle enough so that it looks like real film stock playing, and I'm super stoked on that. It looks good. We've got our looping film stock. We've got our image in the background jumping just a little bit to look like real film stock. We are in a good place. So the next thing I want to do is actually, I'm going to take these and make them a pre-comp. So I'm just going to highlight both of them, right click and choose pre-compose. This little thing will come up and we can just call this background comp. Move all attributes into the new composition, click OK. So that'll create a pre-composition within our main composition. That way we don't have 1,001 layers going on. And if we press play, it still looks good. We're still happy. Wonderful. So there's not really much else we have to do with that background layer. Now we can move on to the really important stuff like the album art. So let's go back to our project panel and we have the Centennial album art. I'm actually going to pull that in, drop it down, make sure it's the top layer. It is huge, so I definitely have to resize it. I have a lot of things that are just really, really big. So with this, I'm actually going to shift click on this node because I want it all to stay the same size. Let it go. Zoom back in here. Now we want to get it to fit nicely within the video. And this element this is our album art. So we're actually not going to do any animation to it. We just want it to kind of sit there. And the reason is because this is a focal point. You want people to see the album art and you don't want it to be jarring at all. You want them to see it, understand it. This is the album art. This is what you're looking for when you go to the store and buy CDs, if kids even still do that. So we want to make that the focal point. It's not going to move. Everything around it will move and look desirable and nice and fun, but it's going to sit still. Now, that said, you can probably notice that it really actually blends with the background a lot. So we want a degree of separation. To do that, I'm actually going to utilize glow and drop shadow. The first thing we're going to do is throw some glow on there. So I'm going to look up glow and we'll just grab glow. You can go to the layer actually within the video, or you can come down to the layer here. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to throw the glow on. Looks a little weird. We definitely have some things we need to do. So the glow threshold, I'm going to bring that up a little bit. Maybe about 68. And the glow radius, I really want to bring that up. So I'm going to make that like 75. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I don't see a glow. I don't see anything happening. The reason is because we need to change it from behind to on top. And you'll start to see the glow once I fix some more things. We're going to go here, set that to 1.2. And you're probably thinking, well, I don't really see it. And trust me, guys, it's there. All I had to do is set the alpha channels, which I totally forgot to do. Yeah, so make sure you set it to alpha channels, not color channels. But now we can see that glow. And now we definitely have a nice separation from the background. But I still want to add a drop shadow just because drop shadows are fun. So let's look up drop. I just type in drop shadow comes up at the bottom. throw it on there. And I have some parameters written down just to make this a lot quicker. We're going to go opacity 59, or is it opacity? Do you say opacity or opacity? I say opacity. Anyway, 135 degrees, we'll keep that the way it is. Distance, I'm going to set that to 0. And the softness, I'm actually going to come up to 70. Now, you might not see it, so if I play with the distance, there's the shadow right there. And we can actually maybe set it to 62 just so we can see the shadow a little bit. It creates a nice degree of separation, so I'm happy with that. If we press play, you can see that the background moves. Everything was looking good. We can see our album art. Pretty happy. Now, the next thing we want to do is add some information, like what is it we're seeing? What is it we're hearing? So let's add some text. What I'm going to do is go to my text tool, and it'll bring up the character map. I have Bebas New selected, which is one of my favorite fonts to use for pretty much everything graphic design related. And I'm going to make sure that the color is white because we really want this to stand out. And we're going to stylize up the text and everything, but let's just get it added in. So we want to create 4 lines. We basically wanted to say, you are listening to song name from the album name. Pretty simple. So let's type it all in. And you can see that the text layer is actually kind of big. So what I'm going to do is change the size of it. And you can do this multiple ways. You can actually just press S on the layer. You can change the scale if you want to, or you can do it with the nodes. Either way, I like to do it through the layer. So I'm going to do it that way. And then I'm going to kind of put the text in place. We want it centered. And if you really want to, you can turn on your title safes just to make sure you're kind of centered where you want it to be. You are listening to, the song is Paraboloid. It's made up, so please don't make fun of me. And I'm going to move Paraboloid down a little bit. And what I want to make sure is actually that the size is similar with all the lines. You know, we just kind of want them to all fit together. So I just want to make sure the sizes are similar. Paraboloid. And I'm going to fill in the last 2 lines. I'll just speed up the footage here. Okay, guys, so you can see I kind of got all my text set up the way I want it to look. The sizes are kind of different, kind of crazy. But the reason for that is because I want certain things to stand out more than others. So Sunset in the Abyss is the name of the album. We really want to make sure that that stands out. Paraboloid, this is the song you're listening to, so that should really stand out. So I think what I'm going to do is actually change the color of that text. So to do that, I can actually just change the text color easily. I'll click on the text tool and I'll highlight that layer. And what I'm going to do is come here, and this little window popped up way on my other screen, but I'm actually going to try to match the color with the sky that's going around, just to set that one off a little bit. I do have the numbers for the color written down just to make this quick and easy. It's ACB1A8. And you can see in the background, it fits a lot better. Don't worry, things still look kind of wonky. Trust me, we're going to fix all of it. The next thing we want to do, I think, is add a stroke to all of these. So I'm actually going to go here to the top text layer. So to add a stroke, you might notice this black box in the background. I'm just going to click on that and it'll bring it to the front, and it actually creates a black stroke. If we come down here, we'll see fill over stroke. What we want to do is keep that as fill over stroke. I'm actually going to bring this up just a little bit, and you can see how that stroke changes just a bit. We don't want to bring it up to 5, maybe 2. Yeah, 2 looks good. So now it's standing out a little more, and I'm going to do that to the rest of the layers, so just bear with me. Awesome. All right, things are coming alive, but they still look kind of just not where we want them to be. So what I'm going to do is go back to my effects and presets. Let's grab the drop shadow, and I'm just going to drop that right there. Now the drop shadow looks a little weird, so I'm going to change the parameters of that a little bit. I'm going to set it to 75% opacity, and I'm going to keep it at 135 degrees. We don't want it off of the text too much, so I'm just going to bring that down to 3. And then we want to soften it a bit. The shadow's a little harsh, so let's bring that up to 6. And there we go. We got a nice soft shadow going on the text there. Easily readable. We're ready to go. Now, instead of going, layer by layer adding drop shadow, here's a real quick, easy way to do it. We're on the you're listening to line. I'm just going to go here to drop shadow. I'm going to do Control C. It's also Command C on a Mac. We're going to go to paraboloid. Click in here and Control V. Click into this layer, Control V, and this layer, Control V. There, now what we did was we basically just copied the drop shadow with all the parameters so we don't have to reset it every time. And now our text is looking really good. So one thing I see that I want to do is change kind of where the text is. It's not exactly centered. So I'm just going to shift click all of those layers and I can just move them kind of down so they're a little more centered. And I'm just eyeballing it here. Again, you can use your title safes if you want, but I prefer to eyeball it. So we're good there. Now let's see what our video looks like. Okay, it's neat, but we can add some life to that text. And what I'm going to do is come back here and instead of grabbing the Wigglorama like I did before, I'm just going to type in wiggle because we just want to add a little bit of wiggle. We don't necessarily want to add all that Wigglorama stuff. And I'm just going to grab the wiggle position. So this is just going to make the position of the text kind of jitter a little bit. And I'll show you what that looks like. See how it just kind of makes the you're listening to just kind of go everywhere. We will definitely change how that looks so it just kind of has a jitter to it. And first things first, we can close transform. And all I really want to do is bring down the wiggle amount. I'm going to bring that all the way down from 50 to 3. So let's see what it looks like now. See, it's just got a tiny, tiny little bit of life to it, not a ton. And it just kind of moves. You notice it, you read it. It looks good. It looks like it's got a little bit of style. So again, to put that on all the other layers, we can just do the Control C, Control V method. I'll speed up the footage so you don't have to watch me do that. Okay, guys, so I put my wiggle on all of the layers. Let's take a look at what it looks like. Look at that. We've got things bouncing around. Now, one thing you might notice is you might want to move the layers around just a little bit. So I'm going to use my arrow keys. I'm just going to move you're listening to up a little bit. Paraboloid, maybe move that up a little bit. Sunset in the Abyss, we can move that down a little bit. Right there. Okay, now let's look what they look like. Cool. They're bouncing. They're really bouncing. Now, one thing I'm noticing is that maybe that stroke on the text is a little too harsh. So I think I'm going to go in and remove it. Okay, and we're back. And you might notice the text looks a little different. What I decided to do was backtrack a little bit, and I took the stroke off of the text because it was just looking a little strange. It just wasn't fitting right. So instead, what I went back and did was I took the opacity of the shadow up to 100, and I really like the way this looks better. So now we can take a look. And that looks really cool. So the next thing I would probably do is maybe add a fade up so we can like fade up from black. But to do that, we would have to add that to all these layers. Here's a quick way around that. We'll just do a pre-composition. I'm going to grab all the layers, the album art, and the text. We're going to throw them in a pre-comp. We'll just call it text and art. Move all attributes, click OK. So now that creates that pre-comp. We're good to go. If you want to get to the pre-comp, you can just double click and you're in the pre-comp. You'll notice that the background's not there because it's back here on this composition. So what's nice about this is now, let's say you're doing multiple songs from the same album. You can come in here, go to this text layer, highlight it, and just change it to the name of the next song. Boom, there you go. Anyway, let's go back to the main comp, which was comp 2. I could have just named this main comp, but that's how things go. So our animation is done. Everything is looking good. The next thing we need is to add some music maybe. So we'll go back to our project panel and you can actually add the music right here in After Effects, which is great. The song I'm using is actually called Regeneration by Wontolla. No, it's not. It's Paraboloid. I borrowed some music and I definitely gave him credit down below. It's just instrumental Djent music. And what I'm going to do is pull up the waveform because this is a pretty loud song. So I'm actually going to bring it down to about -12 because it's super loud. So if I press play on this, You can hear it kind of starting up, and we would have to pretty much render everything out to be able to hear it, but our song is there, our album art is there, our text is there, everything is looking cool. We are ready to go. If you press play, turn the audio off, but if you press play, it looks good. I'm happy with it, but I kind of wanted to fade up from black. So let me show you guys just quickly how I would do that, how I would do a fade up. I'm going to go to background comp. I'm going to press T on the composition, bring up the opacity, because opacity starts with T. I don't get it either. Anyway, the first thing I want to do is actually click here to set a keyframe, and we're going to pull this down to 0%. And then I'm going to go ahead 15 frames. I'm using the page up and page down buttons. So I'm actually going to go 15 frames up, and we'll just set this to 100. You can see that it's setting keyframes as I change the percentage here. So if we try, take a look, cool, quick little fade up. Now what I can do, which is pretty awesome, I can actually highlight these two keyframes, keep the playhead where it is, control copy, go to this layer, T, control V, and everything fades up together. Looks pretty cool. So that's it, guys. We were able to create a really cool music promo. And what you can do is once you finish this, if you're making promos for multiple songs, save this as a template, and just all you got to do is really just change this text right here, and it'll be easy every time. So it's just the first time, you got to create everything. After that, you just kind of input, and set it to go. That's all I got for you today, guys. I am the Visual Smuggler. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm glad we got back into After Effects. And as always, best of luck.